Yeah, it says invalid format. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So here it is, the Nintendo Switch 2. It has a huge Switch 2 dock problem. It's the fastest selling console in history. It launched with 4K docked support, HDMI 2.1, of course, all kinds of new features that Nintendo fans have been waiting for years. I, for one, was excited. I just wanted a Super Switch. That's all I wanted, you know, to be able to play 4K video, have that HDMI 2.1, surround sound as well, and that's what I'm getting. Invalid format. Turns out I'm not alone, okay? The moment I hooked mine up to the television in the home theater, I knew something was off. No signal, no audio, the HDMI handshake errors. It was a problem right from the beginning. I did a whole video about this, and so many of you had different thoughts and feelings. Hey, turn this off, turn off 120 hertz. Maybe you should turn off HDR, try this, get a HDMI 2.1 cable. No. I'm not alone in this. Now, there are thousands of people that are having the same exact experience that I'm having, and this seems to be a growing problem for people that are trying to figure out why, when they plug their Switch into their dock, onto their television, it's not working. Everything else is working. PS5 Pro, every other console that I've got hooked up, but the Switch 2 has problems. So let's get into exactly what's going on here, because maybe, just maybe, Nintendo will have a fix for us soon, I hope. But let's talk about what some of the issues are here. Why it's not working with certain televisions, why it's not working with certain AV receivers, HDMI switchers. I think for a lot of us, you know, when we go through this, we think like, it's me, it's gotta be me. No, it's not you. It's not you, it's not me. It's Nintendo, and there's a huge problem with this dock. So first off, let's talk about video output issues. So across Reddit, across AV forums, support threads, I've gone through all of them. People are complaining that their Switch 2 simply just won't display any signal at all when connected through an HDMI switch or an AV receiver. One user wrote, when I plug my Switch 2 dock into my AV receiver via HDMI, it won't display on my TV. My original Switch works just fine with that same receiver, but the Switch 2, nothing. I feel your pain. I feel your pain. Another person said, quote, I have a ton of devices hooked up through an HDMI splitter. Everything else works, my PS5, Apple TV, the old Switch, but the Switch 2 just refuses to display anything through it. That's exactly what I'm experiencing. Same exact issue. And it's not just switchers, you know, HDMI switchers, even when plugging directly into some televisions, especially with HDMI 2.1 ports, people are reporting blank screens, washed out video, or they're getting this signal, invalid format. So that's exactly what I did. I unplugged mine from my switcher, which is sitting down here. I had an older, not an older switcher, like an 8-port switcher. So then I plugged it into a HDMI 2.1 switcher, and then it was fine for like a day, for like an afternoon. And then Nintendo released that firmware upgrade. And then once I downloaded the firmware upgrade for the Nintendo Switch 2, boom, this is what happened. It stopped working. So whatever Nintendo did in their firmware upgrade seems to have definitely bricked this dock and is not being able to play on the screen. Now, when I plug directly into this is an LG G4, and I plug directly into this television right into the dock, not even going through a switcher, same problem, same exact problem. Although slightly different, I was getting some audio for a little bit, and then the audio would cut out. Here's what's likely happening. The Switch 2's dock outputs a true HDMI 2.1 signal using that Realtek chip that's inside, which basically converts the display port signal from the console. It's supposed to be backwards compatible, but in many cases it just fails that handshake with the older, less compatible HDMI devices. But that doesn't excuse the fact that I've got a new HDMI television. I mean, this is a G4 television, an LG. So what the hell? By the way, some douchebag wrote on one of my comments the other day, he's like, did you feel the need to just tell us it was an LG G4 television? It sounds like that was kind of a flex and you didn't need to tell us that. Really? You have a problem with money. Have you always felt insecure in your life? No, I'm telling you that so you know exactly what pieces of equipment I'm using. Through the entire process, I labeled the switchers, I labeled the cables, I told you exactly what system I was set up and running, so you knew exactly every step of the way the problem here. Well, I'm just gonna say, that's a TV. It's just a TV. Of course I'm going to tell you what the name of the TV is, so if you're experiencing the same issue, I don't have to then go through 80 comments asking me, hey, by the way, what's the model of the television you show? You forgot to mention that one. Yeah, it's a flex to tell you what type of television I'm using. My God, talk about insecure. Anyway, side note. So you're probably out of luck right now if your splitter or receiver does not support HDMI 2.1. So that's what I did. I ordered a brand new switcher, an ORI switcher. I'll put a link in the description. It's a smaller one. It's only a 4-port, but at least it supports eARC plus HDMI 2.1. And I'm waiting on that to arrive. But in the meantime, this older switcher I have right here is a 2.1, this little blue one that I've got sitting up here. So I don't know. I don't know at this point. Here's the kicker though. All of this got worse after Nintendo released this most recent firmware upgrade. So several users reported that before the update, their dock was at least working when plugged directly into the TV. Mine, that's exactly the case for me, and it also worked with that other older HDMI 2.1 switcher. Does not have eARC or any of that, but at least it was working. I was able to play Mario Kart, I was able to play Cyberpunk, and then after this firmware upgrade, sorry, even people with modern gear like LG OLEDs. Why did you have to mention that it's an LG OLED? Why'd you have to? Anyway, even people with modern gear like an LG OLED, Samsung soundbars. I don't have a Samsung soundbar, but I do have a Sonos soundbar and surround sound system that sit there. And HDMI 2.1 capable AVRs also are seeing these same issues. And while Nintendo does offer dock firmware updates, there's been no official fix as of this recording, and it is Saturday evening, June 21st. So hopefully there's something in the works. And it's not just video, there's also all sorts of audio nightmares as well, especially if you use eARC to send sound from your TV to your soundbar or receiver. I reported this about a week ago. It's so funny, that video I published about a week ago, it kind of started off small, and then you can see thousands of people started watching that video because guess what? They're all having the same issue. So the video kind of trickled out, didn't do so well at first, and now so many people are saying, yes, I'm having the same. You can read the comment threads. People are saying, I'm having the same problems. eARC problems, CEC problems, everything. So I was having this problem. My surround sound was perfect in here. Playing my PS5 Pro, playing Oblivion, it sounded great. Being able to jump over to the Apple TV and watch YouTube videos or put on a concert, I get the full surround sound. I was playing Pink Floyd in here, perfect surround sound. Then I plugged in the Switch 2. It screwed everything up. Now no longer does my CEC work, and now no longer does my surround sound system work. It's all disconnected. I can't control anything with the volume up or down buttons on any of the remotes. It's really been a disaster. The Switch doesn't support Dolby or DTS audio, it only outputs uncompressed LPCM, and that means your TV needs to basically pass that along to your soundbar via eARC. But most TVs don't properly advertise multi-channel LPCM capabilities, so the system assumes that your setup only supports stereo and then refuses to output anything more than that. So you see, it's creating all of these problems. Some people have found some workarounds by tweaking their TV settings, switching HDMI input to bitstream, setting digital sound output to pass-through, like doing 444 pass-through, power cycling the soundbar can maybe trick it back into thinking that it's okay to go, so maybe rebooting your Sonos soundbar or your Samsung soundbar. But again, it's hit or miss. So one user wrote, hey, I finally got 5.1 surround sound to work, but only after turning my soundbar off and on like 5 times, fiddling with the input mode. This shouldn't be that hard. And they're right, this is supposed to be next generation software and hardware here, right? Not a cable management nightmare, and that's what it's become. So what's going on here technically? Well, the Switch 2's dock is using HDMI 2.1, which is great for higher bandwidth 4K support, features like VRR, ALLM, but it's also unforgiving when it comes to compatibility. Your HDMI switcher, your AV receiver, your TV, all of these need to be correctly handling HDMI 2.1 specs and the new HDCP 2.3 encryption. Even if one piece of the chain isn't set up correctly, the whole thing falls apart. I was talking to a tech friend of mine who does this for a living. He sets up people's home theater systems, and he was saying, yeah, if one piece of that process is screwed up in that HDMI 2.1 process, like let me just give an example. The cable from this television to your Switch 2 or your switcher needs to be an HDMI 2.1 compliant cable. And really, if you're longer than 3.3 feet, you're really running the risk of problems because you're just not going to get the good pass-through on that HDMI cable. Anybody will tell you anything over 3.3 feet long. That's why they sell cables that are 3.3 feet long for that specific reason. If you go beyond that, you're running the risk of degradation. So I replaced mine with 3.3 foot cables. I'm waiting on the switcher to arrive to see if that hopefully completes the process. But in the meantime, this dock needs to be updated. Also, the dock's internal chip isn't very forgiving either, according to reports. It doesn't always downscale to HDMI 2.1, and that's a problem for a lot of people. So it's not immediately knowing that you don't have 2.1 ability, so it's not downscaling easily. Like the PS5 Pro actually handles that really well, but the Switch 2 does not. And so instead of falling back to 1080p or stereo, it just basically gives you nothing at all. So here's the thing. Here are a couple of the fixes in my research that seems to be working for people, and I'll just rattle off. Here's 5 of them that I'll give you, okay? Plug the dock directly in your TV's HDMI 2.1 port, okay? And see if that works. Avoid AVRs. Avoid splitters if possible. So just directly into your television's 2.1 port. Hopefully you have one of those. Also, number 2, use high-speed cables. They have to be HDMI 2.1 certified cables, otherwise you're screwed. Or even those older 4K cables, don't. Actually, let me give an example of one that did not work. I'll be right back. This cable right here. This is a binary B6 4K Ultra HDMI Premium certified cable. And when we were building our new house, when they were running cables behind the walls to the TV and all of that, this is the cable they put in here. But you'll notice it's also 9 feet long, 9 feet long. So 3 meters, 9 feet long. It's really not good, but nowhere on this box bag does it say anything about HDMI 2.1. So no 2.1 on here. Yes, it looks like it's a great 4K cable. Works for everything else, PS5 Pro and everything else, but it is not HDMI 2.1. So make sure that you're getting a proper HDMI 2.1. Number 3, if you need to use a switch or a receiver, make sure it supports HDMI 2.1 and HDCP 2.3. Look for updated gear made after 2022. Also, maybe you want to update the firmware on any of your receivers or things like that to make sure that it's compliant and is working. Number 4, for audio, you might want to plug directly into your soundbar. Take your dock, plugging directly into your soundbar or your receiver. That way, you might lose some features like VRR, which sucks because VRR is fantastic, but you'll at least get 5.1 surround sound audio in that case. Number 5, check your TV audio settings. Go in there and you may want to change the output to pass-through, 444 pass-through. Maybe that'll help you as well. Also disable sort of weird sound enhancement stuff like some of these TVs have, like they have this AI Sound Pro. And also just reboot your gear. Like, a lot of times sound bars don't reboot, they're just sitting there in that state. So just go through a full reboot of your sound equipment and that may actually trigger it. And finally, update your Switch 2. Update your dock. Hopefully a new firmware update will be out very, very soon from Nintendo. A lot of people are having this problem. Look, I love the Switch 2, I really do. But this whole HDMI issue has really been frustrating for me. And it's, taken me away from playing Cyberpunk. I was gonna sit here and play it on the big screen. I don't really wanna play it in handheld mode. That's not, I don't know, it just feels like too much going on to play in handheld mode for me. I wanna see it on the big screen. Especially in a lot of gunfight situations. It's just harder for me to see it on a smaller screen like that. So I stopped playing it. It's like, screw this. And I went back to playing Oblivion on the PS5. So there you go. I'd love to know if you guys are dealing with this same situation. Have you found any fixes or workarounds for your Nintendo Switch dock? But it seems to be the Nintendo Switch 2 dock is the big issue here. So drop me a comment below. Thank you guys so much for subscribing. And we'll see you next time.